Hello and welcome. Well, isn't it amazing that you look at your date today, look at the 21st century is 15 years old, and this evening I'm here to talk about ghosts working in our civil service and how indeed we're going to exorcise them or get the ghosts out. It's a bit difficult for people like me who try to simplify things. Because let's say, for instance, I run a department and I employ 400 people. At the end of the day, I expect that there are 400 paychecks coming into my department. And so if there is 450 paychecks coming to my department, alarm bells should ring and the extra 50 ghosts should be easily fished out. But somehow we have ignored it. And it has built on to the point where now international aid is being held back because they are not satisfied with how indisciplined we are with our pay structure. And indeed, locally, from the president and everywhere has said that the wage bill is literally killing us, where by the time they finish paying us, there's only 27% of the revenue collected left to build our roads and hospitals and what have yous. How do we get rid of ghost names? And indeed, are there any ghosts? Because today we hear the Accountant General saying that it's not as bad as it looks, and then you look civil servants saying that no, it's absolutely disgusting. My name is Nana Sakwa. This is PM Express. When I come back, I will introduce my guest. Well, thank you very much for staying. Ghanaian labor and ghost names. And sometimes, you know, there are certain shows and certain topics when they give it to you and they give you a certain resource person, you know that, thank God. Now, because we're going to talk about payrolls, finances, and money and everything, who else will I have about Sydney Casely Hayford, who's a chartered accountant and financial analyst. And he's just going to try and unravel what's going on. Indeed, are there ghost names? Are they difficult to come out? The softwares that we are using, I mean, is it tried and tested? Are they new? What is it that makes Ghana have so many ghosts within the labor force, all drawing salary? Brother, thank you very much for coming.
Good evening, Nana.
Good evening. You know, Afisa said, I always say, you know, let's get strength and then the rest we shall fight for. Let's just get the strength.
You've noticed the contrasting colors between us this year.
I know.
I'm just checking on the screen, and I look more white than I was last year. And you're looking darker than you were last year, so there's something going on. You
have to find out from the cameras.
Find out whether it's the cameras or the color resolution.
Probably I've been in the sun more than you have.
Maybe, I don't know.
I've probably been in the sun more than you have. My brother, you know something? This really, this news actually pains me because we have nurses who are working, we have teachers who are working, and for a whole year literally have to go back to their parents to get money just so that they can go to work. On the same time, there are people who don't exist who draw a salary on a monthly basis. Now, we've done it so much so that, you know, UK is saying that, look, I'm going to hold back my aid because I can't give you the money for you to pay ghosts. At least pay people who are alive. Is it difficult to take people who don't exist off the pay structure?
No, it's not, and it shouldn't be. Where do we start from with all of this? We are starting from the premise that we are accepting the fact that there are duplicate names and there are additional names on the payroll who are being paid and they're not working or they are not supposed to be employed.
Thousands.
So we are calling them ghost names. Probably what we need to do is to call them shadow names or phantom names, because at the end of the day, this is what they are. Because somebody is collecting the salary. It's not just dissipating it somewhere else. Somebody is picking up a paycheck, and the person whose name is on that payroll is more or less like how do we call it? He's an appendage of sorts, and people are making money out of this. And if there is any doubt that this is true, we saw evidence of it with the National Service Secretariat issue, and all the students who are being sent somewhere but never arrive there, but they still pick a paycheck from wherever they are. So the fact of the matter is the situation is real. Ghana has a bloated payroll. Ghana has a payroll that is way out of control, and nobody knows exactly what that number is and how to fix it. The blame game that we're hearing today of a private company that is supposed to be running a payroll and a pension and a gratuity program, and which is doing its job, and yet government is saying that the issues are not of their making, it is the making of some other parties, needs to be really thought through. End of the day, we really should go back and ask ourselves, exactly when did this thing start? When did we get to a point where we realized that there were so many, duplicate names on a payroll? And why haven't we fixed it? What is so complicated about finding out duplicity in names that we can't figure out what to do and who should do it? So in many ways, we have complicated the situation by thinking that it is out of hand and sitting back and allowing it to continue. Cynically, one has to say that because there are so many interested parties who are making so much money out of the fictitious payroll system, we are now where we are with a band of people who are virtually holding the country to ransom. Because by bloating the payroll and making it such a massively important issue in our budget and in our allocation of funds, we are virtually holding the rest of the country's development at bay, because that is precisely where the funds should be coming from to be able to execute other projects and other development programs, which we are not.
So another basic question. I mean, I'm sure every department or every ministry must have a HR who's responsible for recruiting. And at every given point, HR should know that I have 3,000 bodies working here, from minister to the janitor. Therefore, if I go to the Controller Accountant General, there should be 3,000 paychecks coming to me. Maybe some have the overtime, whatever it is, but there should be 3,000. So if indeed they're giving me maybe 6,000, I don't know. I just can't seem to get the complicity. Why is it so difficult?
The thing is this. In any organization, you're going to have a human resource management department that takes care of recruitment, firing, hiring, taking care of the welfare of the staff. That's a special department. In some cases, it will come under the purview of finance. In some cases, it will be a standalone, depending on how big it is. You take an organization, I don't like comparing ourselves to the Western countries because we are such a tiny country. But if you look at somewhere like, take AGC, Unilever, Group Indum, any of these really big employee schemes, employee companies, they're running payrolls in excess of 5,000-10,000 staff, but they manage their payroll all right. And that 5,000 or 10,000 is probably the size of a ministry or a department or an agency. So there's absolutely no reason why you can't do it properly. The issue is that the human resource management element, which is not directly under the Controller and Accountant General's department, is the unit that you should be addressing. That's the unit, that's your first point of entry into the system. You should not be able to get into a payroll system until you have been through the paper mill and you've been vetted, you've been tested, you've been checked, you've got all your papers in line, you have your bank account in place, your social security number, whatever biometric data is required, whatever security checks have to be made. All of those things is an HR function. And that in this country is done by HR departments within the ministry. There are departments within the Public Services Commission, local government services are there. All of them are set up to enable us to actually record the person who's going to be employed. Thereafter, once we have fixed their remuneration package, once we've decided how much we're going to pay them based on the scale that they're going to be employed on, they then enter the payroll system. At that point, as far as the Controller and Accountant General is concerned, this person has been qualified for me to pay them. So their job is two things. One, is everything that they have provided me adequate enough for me to pay them? And then secondarily, have I ensured that the person's level of which I'm supposed to pay them fits within the public structure which I'm supposed to pay? You see, the Controller and Accountant General is not responsible for going to find out whether or not somebody's name is duplicated in another system somewhere else. He runs his payroll, and the payroll system, the computerized side of it, is supposed to be perfected in such a way that it actually checks for duplicate names, double entry names, persons whose bank accounts are improper, social security numbers which are incorrect, and stuff like that. That function is such a meticulous thing that it is better left for an accounting system that is computerized to do that. If you try and do it manually, it's a bit of a challenge. So that the payroll system, from the point of entry of the person's biodata into the payroll system to the output where you actually give them a paycheck, that middle function is done automatically, or as automatically as possible, with as many built-in checks as possible to ensure that that person is real and will get a paycheck. Okay? So the human resource function is where the errors start from. And that's where we have to concentrate our efforts to ensure that we clean the database at that point.
So is Franklin a bit harsh when he says close down the accountant, Controller and Accountant General, shut it down?
Franklin is my boy. And we are partners in so many things that we do. And I think that he did say it in jest. It wasn't a serious comment, because he knows very well that the Controller and Accountant General does much more than just payroll, and maybe we will touch on those other things in this program, time allowing. So I think he was being a little cheeky when he said so.
See, now that even though the Controller and Accountant General, my job is that, well, Ministry of Finance has supplied me 10 drivers today. You, myself, him. So at the end of the month, I'm going to pay them. But then you turn out to be 200 years old. I mean, like a basic thing like that, should they at least say, oh, hold on, I mean, this driver or this accountant or whoever it is, is a day old or 200 years old, and therefore check it. I mean, shouldn't things like that?
Yes, well, technically, yes, because the software should pick things like that up. So when the application package picks it up, there should be a list. All right, it's like an exception list which should be printed out and which has to be looked at by a supervisor at a certain level. The clerk or the officer who is looking at it, who does the routine, actually goes in and runs a routine and picks up all of these things. Will then have to look at it, see which ones he can solve quicker. Maybe he needs to go back to the original paperwork and see whether or not there's been a key-in error. And if he detects that, he gets permission to correct that. He can do all those preliminary things. But then when he gets to supervisor level, the supervisor must also check and ensure that all these things that have been trapped and that have been flagged can actually be corrected and are meant to be corrected as we go forward. Here's the problem that we have. See, in any system, people who are in top management and senior management are the ones who are trusted with the integrity of what you're trying to do. Now, their job there is really to manage the junior staff and to ensure that the junior staff are doing their work properly. So when you have senior staff and top executives who are themselves corrupt and trying to corrupt the system and cheat the system, then of course they are turning a blind eye to anything that the junior officers are doing. And this is the situation that we have, that those at the top level are involved in the corruption and the theft. National Service Secretariat. We have the perfect example to study in the National Service Secretariat. That right at the top, the director himself is involved in perpetuating the whole fraud. You can't stop the junior ones from doing it.
Franklin has joined us now, Franklin Cudjoe. Frank, you're welcome.
It's a pleasure, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Well, let me start with, even though your senior brother has built the altar a bit, but I'll start with it. That, were you a bit harsh in saying that we should close down the Controller Accountant General because technically we supply here the names, or we supply the department the names, and then just they just pay out?
Well, as policy analysts, sometimes we speak metaphorically. But even within that, the backbone of a metaphor, you would also realize that the statement was made simply because there was ample evidence that the number one function that the controller performs, if you like, in terms of payroll administration, incidentally is fraught with problems. And at some point, a minister of finance, backed by the directors of a president, who is late, by the way, having access and having verified all the issues that plague both systems, the Oracle system, which the IPPD2 is based on, the IPPD3, for which Aketua is the name, decided that he's had enough, and that the one keeping the 30% of data cannot continuously delay the entire system, and then cannot even detect all these ghost names when they have been when they have significantly been added. So the question was, why don't you just hand over that 30% to the person who had 70% of the data and incidentally claims the data in 2 hours? I mean, what more do we need? What more discussions do we need? And I'm understanding that the controller is suggesting that that letter, which is an ominous letter, would now be the subject of an investigation for possible, what, subterfuge, or for possible breach of faith. What faith were they keeping with the people of Ghana? Were they keeping faith in the closet so that the ghost would comfortably rest in the cemeteries of the payroll? So what kind of faith is that? And I suspect that in the judge who sits on this matter might be minded by the fact that there is a fiduciary relationship. I mean, I pay taxes, everybody pays taxes, and the controller is in our employ to the extent that they can conduct a study which indicts their own processes, to the extent that 2 years after that study, they've done negligible, very little. And to the extent that 2 years after that study, 22,000 ghost names can be detected on the National Service payroll, which they happily pay, to the extent that the EU can withhold funds in December 2014, that's last month, saying that the payroll data they have is fraught with irregularities. Why are they not taking the EU to court, threatening to take the EU to court? In fact, they should threaten the KPMG people as well. I mean, where from this audacious arrogance that private people doing their work, where the kitty masses, where there's been hemorrhaging millions every month of taxpayer money in a system that we've all lamented over, all of a sudden should become the subject of free speech.
Okay, Frank, let me come in here, because basically what Grace Adra is saying is that the Aketua system was literally holding them back. They were not able to do so many functions, and that's why they wanted to put you on hold so they could move in. They were unable to add and change things, which if somebody wanted to add a maiden name, the system won't allow it. If you change your bank account, it wouldn't allow it, and therefore, you know, they are unable to work, and therefore they wanted to suspend it. Not you know, yeah.
Palpable lies, falsehood. And I'm happy that SubTribe came out strongly denying all those claims. Look, there's one letter that seals all of these shenanigans. There's a minister, substantive minister. You should go and speak to Dr. Kobina before, who signed that letter and said, you guys have invalid data, you can't do the work, hand it over to the people who are doing it. By the way, did you know that the data they are accusing Subtribe of, right? And I'm not going to be the spokesperson of Subtribe, but I've verified both claims, and I'm more inclined to suggest that I'll trust Subtribe any day, who have done payroll administration in this country for over 20, 25 years. They are known on the continent. Everybody knows them. But some people are fighting a locally, how do you call it, local content-related matter. When even the president has suggested that we should make use of local content. But let's leave that. Look, from the revelations of Subtribe, the data that they are claiming that has issues was the data that they, the controller themselves, had for years. And when they gave those data to IPPD3, IPPD3 cleared the backlog, cleared everything, 5 years data that was ruffled and riddled with ghost, cleaned it, and was waiting for them to bring the 30%. Then they never did. They even asked Subtribe to switch off controls. Can you imagine a controller asking a technology company to switch off controls? Can you imagine a controller asking that when it was due for surveillance agencies to be put on the IPPD3, they said no. These are the issues at play.
Well, because what is, yeah.
Let nobody, you see, let me tell you, this is typical Ghana. And this is the attitude with officialdom in public service. You know, they become thin gods. And if you do not address the fundamental, Lana, you stayed abroad. Can you imagine that in the UK, a chief civil servant can sit in the media and say that matters that border on taxes, for which they need to answer questions on, they are subjecting that possible, breach of confidentiality. Maybe they've forgotten that their own principles of neutrality, anonymity, and independence does not extend to the fact that public actors would always question the work they do. Okay. And I'm offended because this whole idea of trying to subtly gag us from discussing this, they just got us worked up.
Frank, let me come in here. This is what she said today, that to date, the IPPD3 is unable to produce salary payment voucher, a basic payroll report for the Ghanaian Education Service since it was deployed in 2012. And the implication is that until introduction of the electronic salary payment voucher system, the heads of departments and schools of GES did not have feedback on their employees. So basically wasn't able to, yes.
Nana, this is even another indictment on the controller itself. You see, because they assume that not everybody understands these mechanisms. I mean, what is the essence of a payment voucher? If you want to register people biometrically, at the point that they are collecting their salaries, they need to be verified biometrically. Look, during the election petition, who was in the dock? It was Afarijan, because he had biometrically registered everybody, and they are saying that there are some places people voted without biometric verification. He was the one who was put in the dock. I've said something, but it has two implications. One, the suggestion that a mere procurement of a payment voucher necessarily means that it can riddle it can rid the system of fraudulent data. It's not enough. You can generate payment vouchers if you like. This is a simple, basic thing. I can sit here, design a program, and generate payment vouchers for everybody at the controller. But the question is, why would the payment voucher allow or vouch for somebody to put money to bleed the system? In any case, when they did all the things they claim they have done, if they were doing it, how come 22,000 ghost names were discovered on the National Service Scheme? They'll tell you they were not in charge of that. Can you imagine the controller telling you they are not in control of whoever is put on any payroll anywhere? All they do is to issue bulk checks. I will fire you any day if you tell me that, because I've put you in charge of, you are in charge of the consolidated fund as well. If you are paying money and we are hemorrhaging, it must be apparent to you that there are challenges. And this, by the way, there's another false lie.
Before you tell me the other false lie, I'm going to just go for a break now, and then when I come back, we'll listen to the Controller Accountant General, and then I take reactions from you and your senior brother. So don't move, because it's getting more educative, if I may say.
Yes, please.
Good. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and today we are discussing ghosts. But before we even move forward, let's just hear the Controller and Accountant General, Grace Adro, speaking on the displeasure with the publication.
The department takes exception to the to publishing confidential correspondence in the media, contrary to the confidentiality clause in the service level agreements that the department signed with Soft Tribe. We also take exception to the publishing of the letters and the full payroll assurance. We are qualifying the full payroll assurance reports of KPMG on the internet, thereby posing security threats to our system, users and as well as individuals. We think that this is highly unprofessional and smacks of lack of, it brings out lack of confidence in the relationship. Because as I've said, by publishing these letters in the papers, there are officers who are authorizing signatures. By this publication, their signatures have been put on the internet. That's the risk we are talking about. Again, on the KPMG report, we are not averse to the KPMG report being made available, but we are averse to the whole report that has information that should not be put out there about staff, people who are on the system, users that are on the system, their user identity and all that on the internet. We think that it is very unprofessional, and we hereby wish to register our displeasure.
Pleasure of the Controller and Accountant General. I don't know if I have my other insert ready. If I have my other insert ready, I wouldn't mind having it now. Yeah, let me take my other insert.
Agencies, out of a total of 140 agencies, onto our mechanized payroll. And these 120 servanted agencies that we've migrated include all polytechnics, which were migrated in 2011. The Honorable Minister of Finance in November 2012 directed the Controller Department to migrate the remaining servanted agencies onto IPPD 3 and IPPD 2, because we're running the two systems. At the time the minister issued the instruction, agencies such as the polytechnics, the Forestry Commission, mentioned in the publication, had already been migrated. CSR, Electoral Commission, and National Pensions Regulatory Authority, which were also cited in the publication, were all at their final stages of migration and had been migrated onto the IPPD2. The rest of the agencies referred to in the publication have not been migrated due to legal and policy issues that were raised by the agencies themselves, and which issues are being examined. Now, to set the record straight, the payroll of the National Service Secretariat was migrated as far back as November 2010. The payroll of the National Service Secretariat, however, does not include the National Service personnel. Following the recent developments with the National Service personnel payroll, a decision has been taken to migrate the personnel onto the mechanized payroll of the Controller and Accountant General Department, starting with the 2015-2016 batch of service personnel. As announced, the current batch of the National Service personnel will be paid by the Secretariat through the e-Swiss system with effect from February 2015. The next issue raised by the publication, is payroll data on IPPD 3, or what we call also the Aketua system. As indicated in our earlier press release, which is available for those of us who do not have copies, and this was in response to the publications made by Imani, we wish to reiterate that since the implementation of IPPD 3 payroll system, the payrolls of the Ghana Education Service, and pensioners which are run on this system are equally confronted with the same challenges that have been identified and are being addressed by the department.
Challenges that have been addressed, identified and being addressed by the department. On the phone with us is Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Ghana. In the studio with me is my senior brother Sydney Keslievo, Chartered Accountant, Financial Analyst, trying to educate me and unravel all this mystery. But I'll start with Franklin. Are you with me?
Yes, I am. And I could quickly respond to a number of those the soundbite.
Sure.
Then I'll be done.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I mean the suggestion, once more, that this was made public, again, defeats confidentiality. And we may as well go and catch everybody. Because Eric Snowden, when he leaked all these important data, what did the U.S. government do? Well, they wanted to arrest him, but they also implementing the reforms. As far as I'm concerned, I have not signed any confidentiality clause with Controller Accountant General. I pay them a tax, and I expect them to work for me. If they think they've signed any confidentiality clauses with anybody, they should go and deal with that person.
Okay,
but even as I understand.
The thing you put personal data, people's personal data on there.
Please, Nana.
Yeah.
What are they telling us? That 55,000 ghost names that the KPMG report returned as using about 2,400 bank accounts, or you, Nana, for instance, your Nana Kwawansa, your name alone appears about 2,000 times, differently written, but with the same ID number, the date of birth. Are those people the ones whose credibility is on the line, and they put them out? And so, if they exist, they should also file suits as well. I mean, what is this ridiculous explanation? Sorry for the use of my strong language, but I'm just saying, are they suggesting that the 55,000 people who the KPMG reports revealed, they didn't mention names, by the way, 55,000 using close to 2,400 bank accounts, are people who earn, whose salary levels and professional levels change, but are still maintained in the old system. I mean, old salaries as well as new salaries, and somebody taking it. That should not be of concern to us as well. Let me also just quickly talk about the issue about when they claim that in spite of the finance minister's letter directing them that they should hand over everything to LPPD3, did they tell the minister at the time that, oh, sir, we have mechanized Polytechnic, we have done this? In any case, if they've done all the things that they claim they've done, and it was their data processes were sanctimonious, why did the National Service Scheme happen? And now they are waking up to the reality. Because if you listen to the lady, she said that, okay, why did they only put the personnel, as in the staff of National Service, on the payroll? I mean, this is even insulting to Ghanaians, that you are paying more to National Service personnel, but you are not putting them on the main payroll, but you are not putting staff, skeletal staff of National Service Secretariat, which may number about just 100 or 200 on the payroll. Meanwhile, the over 30,000 National Service personnel, you are not interested in putting them on the payroll. You see where the logic and the fallacies come in. I mean, what kind of thing is this?
Franklin, hold on. Franklin, now hold on for me. Let me find out from Sydney. Cindy, you see what? I'm being educated. Now, what all this is can't tell that, this is an accounting problem. Now, if it's an accounting problem, and we all admit that, this takes 70% of our accounting things, then we have a bigger challenge.
We have an enormous challenge, and I hadn't seen or heard Grace Ajuru's input and the press briefing that she gave, but I'm a bit surprised at her anger. I would have hoped that she would have been a little bit more, what's the name for it? She'd have a little bit more humility and accept that, okay, maybe she considers some of these things to be breach of security. And I don't know which part of it is a breach of security, because I've read most of the literature. I don't know whether there's anything more I haven't said, but I don't see anything in there that breaches security of any person or any individual. Maybe I haven't seen those yet. So I'm a bit puzzled as to why her anger. But look, the problems at the accounting level, the state accounting of this country, is far bigger and far worse than what we are seeing. But at the core of it is the 70% payroll that we are dealing with. So when you hear, and it's good Franklin brought it up, that there are 30,000 plus persons sitting out there who you have not put on a payroll system, but you are proud to announce that you have migrated your National Service Corps ministry or department or agency payroll since 2010 or something. And you're happy to say that and proud to say that, oh, but we ignored the 30,000 other places, which, by the way, is where the fraud happened. But that doesn't matter because we didn't put them onto the payroll.
You put that, they're only going to be there for 12 months, and then they're going away, and then the next 12 months, another 30,000 coming. So maybe it's easier to just leave them out. Let's put the core ones in there because they're going to work till they go on a pension.
And give somebody the opportunity to steal 97 million CDs?
Maybe that wasn't the initial thought.
It might not even have been a thought at all, but the fact of the matter is because you didn't do it and do it properly, you opened a doorway and somebody sneaked in and took 97 million CDs of the taxpayers' money. Okay? And it is for this very reason that I know you are being a little devil's advocate here, but why would you not put 30,000 people onto a payroll for a year? It's a huge number, and it is worth the effort. You see, what you're doing is, because we are lazy and we don't want to do anything clinically correct, we then step away from the challenge and the problem and ignore it, hoping that nothing untoward would happen. And in the meantime, by not spending maybe 10 million CDs to fix that problem, we end up incurring a loss of 97 million CDs. So what have you gained at the end of the day by being so reticent? If we need more bodies in the payroll management in order to be able to save 97 million CDs, for Christ's sakes, let's get them in there and let's employ them.
Grace is saying she has a challenge with the system. It's not working as the old one. She's having problems with it. You know, so why can't she change it? Why can't she use a system which she finds favorable?
But she's not, is there an issue of changing the system? Well, there isn't an issue of changing the system.
Well, she's saying that she didn't want to use the IPP3. They put a freeze on it, a hold on it, because it couldn't perform certain basic functions.
Like what?
Well, print out payroll
That is totally
slips.
untrue. That is totally untrue. You will never, ever have a payroll system being used in IPPD3 Aketua as a payroll system, which is IPPD3. And in case listeners are confused, Aketua is IPPD3. That's the name for it. They've been using it. And as far back as, or as recent as June of 2012, there's a letter signed by the Deputy Controller General, or the acting Deputy Controller General, that ticks off a checklist of all the things that Aketua has done, IPPD3, commends them highly for everything that they have achieved, and asks them to go ahead and implement all the recommendations because they are satisfied with what they have done. The stories are not gelling, and I get the sense that there's a lot more there that needs to be done. But the bottom line is this, Nana. All this that you're hearing about has to do only with 400,000 names on the payroll, and it only has to do with the ministries, the departments, and the agencies.
It's not even 400,000. It's less than that. It's about 250,000.
There you go. All right. So I don't have those numbers because I thought that the education sector payroll alone was about 270,000 employees, and then there were other things.
It's close to a million.
It's close to a million. On the education payroll.
Well, what's the 70% Aketua handles is close to 500,000, which includes significantly that of GES.
Okay.
And Sydney, sorry, I back.
No, come on, because I haven't read as much as you have.
Controller claims. Why is it that if 100% is bad? Because they are not telling us that Aketua is also bad. Why were they keeping only 30%? Why are you keeping 30% of 100% something that is bad? And they want to gag us from talking? Oh man, this thing just got nicer.
So where I am is, we're not talking about tens of millions of people on the payroll. You're talking about 250,000 names. You can probably do that on an Excel spreadsheet if you really had a mind to do it. Okay? It'll take it. So it's not a big deal to work on. So I'm a bit puzzled, all right? And I wanted to go back and say, where is the genesis of all of this? What have we done all throughout this time? And why are we so upset that by somebody pointing out the fact that so much was supposed to have been done as at mid-June of 2012, and it seems like as if not enough has been done so far to be able to fix the problem. So I go back to my fundamental question about all of this. Since we started accounting for government payroll in this country, are we going to be told at this point in time that we don't have the capacity, the resources, the ability, the capability, and the technical know-how to actually run a payroll service? Is that what we're hearing? That after all this while, we really can't run a payroll service? Look, I'll tell you something, and maybe I'll be in breach, but I have worked with some organizations now where payroll has not been met at the end of the month, okay? Where people have not been paid, their money has not gone into their bank accounts. They down their tools and they ask serious questions. The people are prepared to go and fight in order to be able to get their monies paid. All right? Now, you have a situation with government staff. Some people are not paid for a year. Some people say they have not received allowances for 2 years. But yet we carry on. And I ask myself sometimes that, why is it, all right, that our institutional leaders seem to be satisfied, okay? They seem to be satisfied that they can always come back and tell us, oh, we are doing something about it. Oh, we have put half of the people on it and we are working towards completion. It seems to be a perpetual story that gets told every time we hit a problem and we are trying to unravel the mystery behind a problem like this. It just so happens that in this case, there's a private sector person or persons, because KPMG is also involved to some extent, are involved in the actual fixing the payroll system. All right? But had it not been for that, do you think this would ever have come out? Do you think our government would be prepared to be transparent enough to come and tell us that this is a situation that we are facing and this is something that we are trying to fix? They would never have done so. So it would have gone on hidden forever.
Well, I'm going to take a break, but before, here are some of the other challenges they have. Now, the other challenges on the GES payroll include the system's inability to allow for change of name, i.e. change of maiden name to a new name, inability to state reasons for termination of employees. Other payroll data issues include questionable promotion and recruitment date, wrong and zero bank account numbers, staff without SSF numbers, which are part of the data cleaning exercise and that the department is undertaking. These were some of the challenges. Now, when we come back, we'll find out why they still hang on to the Aketia system. Stay tuned. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're still in the graveyard finding those who are earning a salary. And I've just put down some of the problems which the Controller Accountant General is claiming that, look, these are the challenges we have, and hence we don't want to use this Aketia system. Have I got Franklin?
Hello?
Yeah, Franklin.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, just before the break, I told you some of the problems they had. They can't change names. So if you are in WA and you needed your name changed, you have to come all the way to Accra and tell them, listen, now I'm married and I'm Hajia, therefore change my name for me. Otherwise, it's not done.
Is that a problem of IPPD 3 or IPPD 2?
Well, she was saying this was some of the challenges. Let me see.
We have to assume IPPD 3.
IPPD 3.
Oh,
yeah, IPPD 3.
This is where it gets interesting. Because you see, once they threw up sub-tribe name into the, in the open, I also went to talk to sub-tribe and asked them, so your system, can it be decentralized at all? Can it start back to back? Can it really clean anything at all? The sort of cost is on the system. But guess what? Controller pays close to 7 million cedis or so for the same system, and they're sitting somewhere doing nothing, like a white elephant. The things controller is paying for already exist on the Aketia system. This is why Coordinator before once again said, look, let's stop this cat and mouse games. Hand over the thing. Nana, all these things we are talking about years, neither here nor there. You see, they are trying to play some smart one on us. Legalese, the threat of court action. Since when did the threat of court action over public speech become a worry for a think tank? I don't think it's a worry for a professional group like Subtribe as well, because they will defend themselves to the latter. Because people who are transient in public office cannot hold tax-paying citizens to ransom. According to Subtribe, their system can be decentralized to the end of the game, where it begins. But isn't it curious? Once more, go back to that example. You claim that you don't control what MDAs do. But in this case, you are ready to accept that you control the skeletal staff of the National Service Secretariat, right? But you don't control what else they do afterwards. I mean, this is dereliction of duty, and I think the Auditor General should be surcharging the Controller General for wasting 2 years of allowing 2 years of payroll data to go unchecked. By the way, did you know, Nana, that the very things Controller KPMG retained, the ghostings, everything they found, KPMG did that in 2010 and retained the same results? What was the controller doing at the time? There would have been no need for every KPMG to be asked to do anything again. But you see, within the gamut of, sorry, that's a bad expression, within the milieu of confusion, of probably showing who has the power, don't forget we lost a president in the process. Command before issues a letter June 12, 2012, stop this stuff, give it to Aketia, IPPD3. All of a sudden, President Mills died. May so rest in peace. July, he dies. You can understand that there's already like confusion. Also, people are settling issues. Minister gets changed. Then they disrespect everything. Nana, all we are dealing with is a matter of institutional cancer, where institutional memory is not respected, where orders given by superiors are disobeyed because they are political. Those things are wrong. And those are the matters policy analysts like us will discuss, with or without the court order. I'm waiting to hear the judge who will say that we shouldn't discuss issues of malfeasance on a payroll. I will be damned if I will leave this country if that is the case. Because I don't understand it. We pay taxes, people go and sit somewhere, create loot and share, and then you want to tell me that I shouldn't talk about this? Well, I just got 4 months.
Ironically, there's a letter from the Controller and Accountant General also expressing satisfaction on the same system which they are not satisfied. So I'm a bit confused there.
Yes,
I'm a bit confused.
Yes, there is a letter that actually commends Subtribe for all its assistance and all the work it has done, and for several key things that is identified. And it's a letter from the CAGGD department.
Let's take I have a last insight on the payroll, so let's see what it says.
I think this ghosting as we're talking about, it has to do with the morality, the integrity, the honesty of the Ghanaian people, and all of us are included. But if we look at it that somebody is processing a payroll, and so that person has a magic wand to detect payroll, I think the chase will take a long time.
Well, I'll give it back to you anyway. So,
Nana?
Yeah, Franklin.
That is another misunderstanding of what we are dealing with. Look, you're giving a job to somebody to do. Then the person comes and tells you, oh, no, I'm not responsible. It is these people who are responsible. And you keep hearing that the wage bill is rising, right? You are not even interested. As a controller, you are in charge of the consolidators. You are not even interested. What does this talk about? Oh, it's a morality issue. It is not a morality issue. It's a technical issue. It's a technology issue, and it can be solved. Like Sydney, my senior brother is suggesting that common banks are able to process data for over 1 million customers from different backgrounds. Some people are watchmen and whatever. They're able to process data. And the system they use is not expensive. How come? You're handling just about 250,000 people. And then you want the whole world to know that you're having challenges for decades. What type of thing is
So
this?
Franklin, I'm going to promote you this evening to Controller and Accountant General, and then I will be probably Ministry of Health, Labor, whatever it is. And then I bring you 20 people and say, look, I've hired these guys, 2 of them are drivers, 18 of them are laborers, pay them. I mean, how do you then turn around and tell me that, no, and I'm not going to pay the last 2 because...
But hang on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that the biometric system that you use in registering them, right? Right?
Yeah.
Can you let that system feed into my controls at the controller so I can sit at one place and be cross-checking so that when those names you brought to me, right, are the known ones because they would have been certified by the way, because their degrees and whatever would have been certified by a service at the last station. Once those names with their biometric verification are keyed into the data, there's no way you can come and tell me later that, oh, when this person, when this person died, we took 3 more people, or this is the issue. The fact of the matter is that there are administrative issues for each region or district. How many teachers do you need in a district? If that is solved, this issue about whether you brought me names and I should tell you that these don't qualify wouldn't even happen, because you should know that each district needs about 10 teachers. If it turns out that there are 20 teachers being brought, automatically you should raise an alarm. That is the duty of a controller. But you see, you've asked a potent question. And I think the controller has also brought up an issue of what I call policy coherence. How do we not know that each district on a map would need 10 teachers, 10 cleaners, so that when they are returning data and even bringing manual data for you to pay 20 people, you say, hey, according to the Ministry of Education's, charter, you are supposed to have 20 teachers. How come you are bringing 30 to me, even though their names are here and they are this thing? So that means you must have done recruitment elsewhere. So until we solve this issue about the policy coherence, where we need, essentially what it means is that we need to know what we actually need. If we get that, this whole idea of training people to impute data manually is waste of money. By the way, once more, the issue is simple. Look, you need to verify data. Why? We did it with the elections. Didn't we do biometric? Why? When people were going to vote, did you see 10 people using the same fingerprint? It didn't happen. Right? Yes, it didn't happen. It was when it was shown that yes, when they were recording the numbers that voted, instead of let's say 413, they returned 413. That's clear fraud. That one, it is on recording it on paper.
Thank you. Let me bring your senior brother in here, because he's going to tell us what's the way forward. He's an accountant. He has to give us a good way forward.
Good Lord.
So that next year when I sit here and say, you know what, there aren't any ghosts. Everybody being paid is literally working there.
It is easier to manage complex functions in a financial system when you manage them separately. If you try and do everything in one place, you get bogged down completely. So you need to break this thing up, decentralize it, and let the payroll be managed at different levels. The attempt to try and do everything through a gift-miss system, as we are being told would work, is incorrect. It will not solve the problem. Each department, MMDA, must have a way of running its own payroll and issuing out its check. The controller's problem there is to aggregate all of those payrolls and then make sure that we are within budget and we can actually get this thing done. The way we are doing it now, it won't work. And the best thing I suggest is that we should figure out a way of getting a system that integrates everybody and that can be managed by hopefully private sector, because the private sector is supposed to lead and is supposed to be the engine of growth. Let them come in, let this be outsourced properly, and let it all be managed in a way. The actual recruitment process, bringing in people and putting them onto government and state payrolls, that has to be done and handled by the state, by the state's human resource management system, because they know the kind of persons they are looking for, they know the recruitment that they are going for. But you can't go above your budget, and you have to keep the budget tight and make sure that things are done properly. If I was running this, that's the way I would do it. I wouldn't sit down at national and expect that I will be able to manage 250,000 people in one particular sector as I am. It won't work, and it's too tedious.
That's all time will allow me. Thank you very much, Franklin, President Franklin Kujo, President of Imani, and my senior brother here, chartered accountant and financial analyst. And I think we have all been educated as to how this thing would work. I think it will take a little bit of patriotism and a bit of will, just to be honest with ourselves. And I'm sure we'll get, but next year by this time, I promise you, there won't be any ghost. They'll do their jobs well. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.